In this video, we're going to break down the shin box base position and how we can use this to train for 3 different ranges of motion based on the prerequisitory requirements of this position. So what is the shin box? Basically, it's a more accessible version of the popularized 90-90 position, where the front knee and hip is at 90 degrees in flexion, and the back hip is at 90 degrees of knee flexion. So the shin box is essentially meeting the back knee a bit closer to the front foot. Now, what are the requirements of this position? We have hip external rotation on the front leg, and we have hip internal rotation on the back leg, but we also have a slight degree of hip abduction, especially the more we come out into 90-90. Now we have this adduction demand where the adductors are lengthening. So, depending on our main limitation, we can use this base position to train for each of these individual ranges of motion and bias different muscular tissues. That could be our limiting factor. So first, let's start with hip internal rotation. So we're always going to start from the top so we can load the stretch effectively. Now, when I want to load the rotational plane, especially internal rotation for the back leg, I'm going to predominantly move in rotation at my torso. So I'm rotating as far as I can toward my back foot, attempting to dip my outside shoulder toward that back foot. And I'm not worried so much about bringing my hips down to the ground here. Just sitting my hips back a little bit just to give me leverage to rotate into it. Now, I don't want to be maximally abducted here. The knee should just be a little bit abducted, so the adductors are on a little bit of length to kind of slacken the joint capsule. But we're also not staying fully in the center here, because then we can't get the foot flat on the ground. So just a little bit of abduction, and we're prioritizing this rotation. So as I rotate toward the back foot, I'm thinking about pushing the inside of my foot into the ground to propel me back to center. Next, let's focus on hip abduction of the back leg. So now we're going to want to bias as much width as we can, so bringing this knee further away from the foot here. And what we can also do to give us a little more space is make sure this knee is outside of the hip. So instead of being hip in line with the knee, we're going to push that hip out to the side. So now I'm going to keep my body centered, face on, and I'm going to focus on getting width here, so bringing my knee further away from the hip. And now I'm going to focus on sitting my hips back down to the ground and then coming up. Okay, so when I extend the hip at the top, I could think about shoving my knee out a little bit more. Okay, hinging into it. Now, if our butt's hitting the ground too easy, what we can do as a progression is actually elevate this knee on a yoga block. So now there's more range of motion to move through. As I sit the butt back, I'm driving through the inside part of this knee to come back upright. What you can also do as a progression is straighten out the trail leg. So now we're doing this straight leg, kind of shin box straddle up. And of course, as a progression there, we can elevate the foot on the yoga block as well. Okay, lastly, we're going to bias external rotation on the front hip. So, just like we did for the back hip rotation, we're going to be rotating our belly button toward the front knee as we sit back. So I'm rotating this way and then driving my knee into the ground to push me back to center. If we want a bit more of a challenge, we can elevate that knee so that the butt is now moving down at a deficit. It's kind of a nice variation, because if we think about variations of the pigeon stretch, it requires hip extension of the back leg to get an effective stretch of the front leg. Whereas the shin box variation, we can kind of take away that hip extension demand. So, very versatile position to train different ranges of motion at the hip. Now, the shin box position is a bit complex, and if you're really stiff and you really can't sit upright in this position without pain, then you're going to need more kind of introductory drills to actually unlock this position. But I will say, You don't have to be able to sit in this position very comfortably to train it, especially if we're starting from up here each rep. So what you'll notice is after working each direction, or especially biasing your main limitation, you'll retest afterwards, sit in your shin box position, and you should be able to sit much more comfortably upright.